Okay, we're going to dive into a big topic. So, everybody knows that there's so much talk of vaccines soon hitting the market. The question we begin the show with today is, what if someone, maybe that someone is you, refuses to take the vaccine? So, CTV News is reporting this story that bioethicists are saying this is a question that we should have been talking about a long time ago. If someone says, nah, vaccine is not for me for whatever reason, that is going to present another set of problems. So what do you all think, ladies, if someone or you decides vaccine's not for me?
Let's go to social media. We have a comment here from Sandy on Facebook, and Sandy writes, "I think we need to start treating people like our pets. I can't take my dog across the border unless I have her vaccination papers with me. Maybe we should start doing the same." And there are some people who think that once the vaccines are made available, that we will all start walking around with vaccination cards like a driver's license to present at any place of business or a public place in order to verify that we've had our vaccines before we go inside. And I think this is what the bioethicists are talking about, because in theory, when it comes to our bodies, we have the right to do what with our bodies as we want. And if that includes not taking a vaccine, as some people might choose to do, then they're exercising their human right. But would it be a violation of their human rights if they were barred and refused entry somewhere based on their exercising of their human rights? That's why ethics is such a tricky, thorny thing.
You know what? I'm going to just jump in from a business side of it. And I understand what you're saying there, Lainey. But I do think if I'm an employer, for example, I can't ask you if you have pre-existing conditions. There are privacy issues. I can't ask if you've been vaccinated. And so I think things may change. And to your point, the conversation should have been going on for quite some time, because there isn't full disclosure, transparency when it comes to the vaccine. But when we get rapid testing, we might see it in schools, we'll see it at maybe airports, we'll see it with employers, and then they can start making decisions about whether or not maybe you can even come to work. But right now, we've got to get over this big hurdle, and it's privacy.
You know what? Here's the thing that a lot of people are also not understanding is the fact that there's also just not enough information out there. We constantly talk about these pharmaceutical companies who are doing these clinical trials and the demographic that they're aiming after, that the clinical trials are done after. You know, when everything is approved, I think a lot of people would agree that more information needs to be available to the public. But here's the thing. It's inevitable that people are going to refuse this vaccine. I don't know how many, I don't know how large that group will be, but people continue to refuse even just the simple flu vaccine year by year. So the government definitely needs to look at this, and, you know, there needs to be a protocol in place. For example, when I worked for a private lab company as a technician, it was mandatory for us to get the flu shot. The company nurse would come in with the vaccine and everybody would line up and get their vaccine. Now, anyone who refused it, and there were times that I refused it as well, it was you had to sign a waiver saying that you refused it. And from that point on, you had to be masked up, you had to have a shield in front of you, and you could not even have lunch in the premises. You had to leave the premises to even just to be able to take the mask off. Because here's the thing, ladies, if the governments now start saying that you need to have a card or whatever certificate showing that you've had your COVID-19 vaccine, I mean, what's stopping people from forging those letters, right? People are constantly forging information, and that's just like another fraudulent situation that we're looking at. So this needs to be handled really responsibly, because there is going to be pushback, and we need to figure out how we're going to deal with that pushback.
So you don't think it's time for us to get barcodes embedded in our wrists and like scans?
Oh boy.
Are we not there yet? We're not there yet.
Oh, please tell me that's facetious.
I know, right? It's like a movie, but this whole experience, there's been many movies made of experiences just like the ones that we're living through right now. I go back to what is working and what isn't working. We know right now not having a vaccine is not working. We have record-breaking numbers, sadly, record-breaking deaths. We have hospitals and doctors and nurses that are on the brink of collapse themselves. Today is not working. And so when people are worried about vaccines, I think that I'm more worried about the side effects of not taking a vaccine than I am of the side effects of taking a vaccine, quite frankly. And we know the system works. Vaccines, they've saved humanity and civilizations for decades. And this is the reason why our kids are not allowed to go to school unless they've had the proof that they've had their 9 immunizations at the proper intervals in their life. And so the system works. The worst part that I can see with all the research out there is that we're going to have to get this vaccine annually, that we don't actually know how long it's going to last. That's actually the worst part that I've seen in all of this, firstly. And secondly, we don't know how it's going to work in kids. But quite frankly, I think kids are really low on the list. We got to get those healthcare workers vaccinated. And I'm pretty sure, considering the conditions they're facing today, they're going to be like, yeah, sign me up. I'm first.
You know what, Mel, to really quickly add to that, I encourage people watching to also look up the piece that Molly Thompson just did on W5 that just aired this last weekend, talking about the whole polio pandemic that hit Canada in the mid-50s and the race to create a vaccine for that, because children, we're talking tens of thousands of children, were left paralyzed. In that situation, when that vaccine was available, parents were lining up. There were no questions asked. They had everything to lose. So perhaps people are not taking the severity of COVID-19 as serious as the diseases we've seen happen in the past. But I highly recommend people to see how Canada handled that pandemic and how it left children, which that and polio did actually target kids under 12 years of age.
Well, it's a different time though, Sonia.
So
I mean, I agree with you. Back then, the public had seen the effects of polio, and also the public trusted science and information more. We are living in a time when we doubt information, or at least certain people doubt information and science all the time. And we have seen it not just in the medical field, but in the news field, in the political field. And that's the reason why ethicists are so concerned with this particular situation. It's not just the biological ramifications, how physically this virus has affected people. It actually has social ramifications on our society. And there are precedents that people are worried about. I'm linking 2 different issues, but when we're talking about precedent, social precedent, legal precedent, this is something that people are concerned about. You remember a few years ago, there was a case in the United States with a bakery refusing service to a gay couple on religious grounds. That case went all the way to the Supreme Court. If you are talking about businesses refusing customers who have not had vaccines, there are certain people who are worried that the anti-gay establishment will link up with the people arguing on behalf of their businesses to refuse people who have not been vaccinated. 2 different issues, I know, but the legal precedent could be linked. So this is not just about science. It's not just about people who are healthy. It is laying precedents for how we apply situations in a certain way. And that's why we need to have these conversations and come down on a position collectively as a society.